Hey everybody, welcome back to Sophisticakes by Mary. This tutorial is very special to me because it is to say thank you for 20,000 subscribers. I really didn't know that I would get to this point when I started this journey. It was just kind of something fun to do, and now it's turned into a lot of support. So I just want to say a huge thank you to everybody who has subscribed and who watches my videos. So for this cake, I actually did an Ombre buttercream with chocolate geodes, a sugar sheet wrap, and chocolate sails. So if this sounds like something that sounds interesting to you, please stick around and we'll get right to it after the intro. So as always, we need to start with our decorations that need some time to set up. So to make these geode rocks, I just used candy melts. I've been using them a lot lately, but they're very versatile. So I just used some turquoise and some white because I wanted a paler color of turquoise. And I just melted it in the microwave in 30-second increments at 50% power, And then I added some vegetable oil to thin it out so that it's a little more spreadable. Now you could use any flavorless, colorless oil would work just fine, but I just use the vegetable oil because I have it on hand. And then once I have the spread out on my silicone mat, I go ahead and clip the end with a clothespin and let it set up. Now I just let it set up at room temperature. You could put it in the refrigerator for maybe even like 5 minutes and they'd be done. But I had other things to do while I was waiting for those to cool and set up. So I just went ahead and set them out at room temperature. And I made 3 different sizes of sails. Well, actually 1 large one and then some smaller ones. Now to make these geodes, I have these silicone molds. They are available online. I will attach a link for you somewhere on where to get these molds. And what I do with the larger one is I use that rubber band to keep it closed. And then with all of these molds, I fill them about halfway, maybe a little bit more, and then tap out the air bubbles and then finish it off. Set those aside to cool as well. Then I'm using some sweet stamps on my plaque with a hexagon cutter. And you can see that that is about 1/8 of an inch thick on the end where the toothpick is going to go. And these sweet stamps are great. Now I'm just pick out whatever wording, whatever lettering you need. I just needed a 2, a 0, and a K. And I just made sure that they would fit within the outside perimeter of my hexagon mold before I even did this. And once you get those impressed, use your cutter to cut out the shape. And then I used a size smaller to kind of mark in a border around the outside edge so that I could finish that off with some gold luster dust. Set that aside to dry. I used all gum paste with that. Set it aside to dry. You'd probably be better off to do that the day before. And once your rocks have cooled, go ahead and take them out of the refrigerator or the freezer, wherever you froze them or firmed them up, chilled them, and just kind of pull the silicone mat away from. Same thing with the sails here. Just pull the silicone mat away gradually because these are kind of fragile. And with the rocks in particular, kind of wiggle them as you pull them out. Now I'm going to make the sugar wrap or sugar sheet. Careful there, sugar sheet wrap. I used some black sugar crystals I already had and then some clear. And I wanted them to all be black. So you just put in a little bit of your food coloring and mush it around until you get the color the way you want. So go ahead and put that in a bowl. Add 2 tablespoons of the corn syrup, the clear corn syrup, to 170 grams total of that the sugar crystals. Mix it in, get it really incorporated. Now I'm just going to use some parchment paper. I just fold it in half so that I can move it. I didn't want a real tall one. I measured how far around the cake it needed to go. I measured, what would that be, your circumference around the cake. And then I knew I didn't want it any taller than maybe like 3 inches, but I wanted it random, kind of not completely level horizontally. So I just put it in the parchment and then I used my roller to roll it out. And then I wanted a flat edge, straight edge for the bottom. So I removed some of that from the bottom. And I also needed it a little bit whiter. So I moved that to the end. Roll it again. And see how shiny that is? I love that. Now just set that aside to set up for maybe 2 hours. And then you can move on with the rest of your cake. So I have an already crumb-coated 6-inch cake. I think it's 5 layers of cake. I wanted it to be kind of tall. And for this ombre, I just used the 2 colors because I knew my third color was going to actually be the black, the sugar sheet. So I went about 1/3 of the way down with that pale turquoise color, and then the bottom I did white. And I call it ombre because there's no clear cut line on where the 2 colors meet. I kind of ombre it together. Ombre doesn't necessarily have to be different shades of the same color. It could be ombreing together different colors as well, in my opinion. So just smooth that out as best as you can and set it in the fridge to chill for 20 minutes or your freezer for 10 minutes. And then bring it back out and cut out your section for your geodes. Now these molds, some of them are on the wider side, so I needed to make sure that the hole was big enough. I did go back in and cut a little bit more out width-wise. This is here where I went ahead and cut out a little bit more. Now go back to your sugar sheet and cut a clean line on the bottom, because that's going to be what wraps around the bottom of the cake. That's what's going to be touching the cake board, and you want it to be even around. You want it to reach down to the board. Now I flipped it over and pulled the parchment off. It's a little sticky. I probably could have let it set a little bit longer, but I needed to use it. To be honest, I needed to. Now to get it to stick, I find a little trick here is if there is an ingredient in your wrap, whatever it may be, or when you're making sugar flowers even, that you can use as a glue doit. Since this was corn syrup with the sugar crystals, if you put a little corn syrup on the backside, it will stick to your wrap and then stick to the cake. So just like if you're doing sugar flowers, if you use some gum paste that you would make them out of, add them to water and let it dissolve some, you use that as a sugar glue. So you have that one ingredient that is in both. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Then I went in with a splatter. I just used black food coloring with some Everclear. Got it down to a splatter consistency. You could practice on a piece of paper to make sure that it's going to splatter correctly. Dip your brush in there, and then just use your finger to splatter it on. And then, of course, I needed to edge out the sugar sheet in gold. I always have to add some gold, don't I? So I'm just using a finer tip brush with some gold luster dust and some Everclear to do that top edge. And then I used the same gold paint to fill in my plaque once it has set up. What's nice about those sweet stamps is since you have the pattern, the numbers, letters, whatever you're doing, engraved into your gum paste, you just go in with a fine tip paintbrush, or you can even use a small eyedropper to kind of drop it in there. On this one, I just used the paintbrush. I loaded it up pretty good, and then I used a toothpick to kind of guide it into the more narrow sections, and then just went ahead and painted around that border. Now to get your geodes to stick in, just go ahead and use some buttercream that's the same color as your geode and fill in that gap that you have cut in the cake. And just go in and use whatever is visually appealing to you, fill them in that way. Just kind of put them in, step back, look at it, see if it looks good to you. You can take them out and rearrange them if you need to. And I did do that. I just edited that out. You don't need to see all that. And then do the same with the top. And then I did break off some of the pieces of my extra geodes and filled in where I needed smaller pieces. And then I did use some rock candy. Just kind of border it out, just to fill in those gaps, because since your candy melts are hard, you can't really mold them to the shape of your slice that you cut into the cake. So you might have some gaps, and that's where the sugar candy came in handy. It was clear, so you couldn't really see it, but it did fill in any obvious gaps. And then go ahead and put your sugar sails in the top and your plaque. And go ahead and cut into your cake on the top where you want to put your sails if you need to get them to stick into the cake a little better. And I just went around and I kind of touched here and there with the gold, edged out the sugar sails, added some to the geode crystals as well, and a little around the top edge. And then I did go in and I splattered a little bit with that gold too. And to bring that fissure, I don't know what we'd call that, into the design a little bit, I did just kind of pulled that gold down a little bit. And I'm just edging out around all of the crystals. Now, I've made these crystals before with rock candy, or not rock candy, isomalt, but I wanted to show that it is versatile, that you can use other products as well. And here's where I'm doing the gold splatter. Same technique with the black. And I wanted it to be on that, the black sugar sheet too. And actually, I guess just everywhere, because I did put it on the sails too. Let's just be clear, it's everywhere. And then I wanted the black to be a little bit deeper, so I went in and added a little bit of that. And I had taken the plaque off while I did that, because I didn't want the splatter on the plaque. And just arrange that where you want it. So there you go, guys. It's my Geode, Ombre, chocolate sugar sail, 20K commemorative cake. Like you can buy coins. I don't know if anybody's old enough to remember that. Your commemorative coins. Anyway, so again, I just wanted to thank everybody so much for supporting me in this journey. I have gotten so much out of it, and I hope you have as well. And if you would, please like, subscribe and share and comment and hit the notification bell so that you see my next uploads. We'll catch you next time. Thanks, guys. Bye.